Let's go to our caller from the 419 area code. Who's calling today from 419?
Hello, David. Is this me?
Yes, it is.
Hello. I've called him before. I am from rural Ohio. And so my question today is, how do you argue for for no tax cuts for the rich with Republicans? Because I've tried this in the past, and it hasn't worked. So their argument in the past has been, well, you see, if you tax them, then their businesses are going to go away, and they made all that money legally. They did it because they just worked harder than everybody else, which isn't true. So I tried arguing with them about it, saying how these not tax cuts, if you tax them, you could put it towards infrastructure, Medicare, and overall improving the quality of life for your country. And they just straight up refuse it. So my question for you is, how do you argue in favor of tax?
One of the things you have to do is you have to really separate the arguments, because even right there, you gave me two different arguments and you kind of blended them together and you said, I'm having a hard time arguing against this. The first one was that if you tax, you're going to hurt the businesses, or they'll stop doing it, they'll stop working, or sometimes it extends to they'll move to another country or whatever the case may be. You'll disincentivize work or whatever. That's one argument. Then you went on to trying to justify the reason we have taxes as necessary to pay for things and to have roads and public schools and whatever else. So really important, it's impossible to go through every point and counterpoint here with you, but one thing you really want to do is you want to separate out the different arguments and make them really justify it. So to pick one, there's this idea that if the tax goes too high, they'll just stop their business. It's a disincentive to keep working because too much of their money will be going to taxes. Okay, we can deal with that. There's a lot of scholarship on that, and we can start to talk about, well, the devil is in the details. What should the top marginal tax rate be? What we have generally found is that the top marginal tax rate at which the government maximizes revenue is around 70%. Now that doesn't mean you get taxed 70% on all your income. That might mean like once you get to 10 million a year in income, you start paying 70% or something like that. And all of the scholarship on it suggests that that does not create a disincentive to work. And that the truth is, if it started to create one at that point, maybe it wouldn't be altogether a bad thing. So that's just an example of how you've got to separate these arguments and not allow. What gets difficult is you'll have 3 or 4 different arguments that are sort of related, but not really thrown at you. And then you're in the position of having to pick them apart and respond to each of them all together. Don't allow that. Take control of the narrative and go point by point. And obviously it takes time to do it, so you've got to have some patience.
Yeah, because I feel like the main problem with trying to argue this with Republicans, like my friends, for example, is, I mean, they respect my opinion. They listen to me. It's just their parents have grown them up in a way that they already have their hard set beliefs.
Yes.
And nothing will change their mind.
Right.
I've just learned to accept this fact.
Yep. So what you have to do in those cases is recognizing that is important. You're not going to change their minds by beating them over the head. Get them to justify their beliefs deeply with a sort of Socratic method of questioning. And one place on taxes you can start is, okay, listen, do you want to get the crazies out of the conversation by saying, are taxes legal and should we have some taxes? Okay, that's the first place. If someone says taxes are theft or slavery and are illegal, or the tax rate should be 0, I wouldn't even waste my time with those people. That's not, go do something else. Go read a book. You're going to have some better thing you can focus on. Once they concede, okay, yeah.
Midway through my argument with them, I realized this, and I tried changing the topic to something else. I forgot what it was, and then they started coming after me, saying how I'm against billionaires and how just because they work so much harder than I do that I shouldn't be jealous of them, which I'm not jealous. They made their money through illegal ways, money laundering, such like the Trump campaign, $170 of money laundering.
Oh, you know what now I'm starting to see why maybe these conversations aren't going so well. You're sort of all over the place because now you're on to talking about individual billionaires who are accused of but that's a very different conversation from taxation and what the tax rate would be. So what I would really do is don't go all over the place with arguments about money laundering and should you really got to narrow the conversation, find two or three really good arguments and come prepared, because I can see you're probably getting flustered and going all over the place.
I was arguing with them. I didn't bring that up.
Okay.
I was still staying on the main taxes, how taxes pay for everything. You need taxes. Like in life there's two certain things: death and taxes.
Well, but they would argue that the taxes shouldn't be certain. So this is where I would start. I would start. I would start with
just an example I gave to you.
Our tax. Okay, it sounds like I may be on speaker and we're starting to echo. You've got a lot going on there and a lot to contend with, but I would really first focus in on, do they concede that we need some taxes and that taxes are legal? And then you can work from there in the gray area and narrow the focus onto what the tax rates should be. All right, my friend, I appreciate the phone call. Sounds like you've got that's a real matzo ball hanging out there in terms of some of these arguments you're in. And I very much wish you the best. All right, that does it for me today as far as phone calls are concerned. I will take more calls again in the future. Not today, but in the future. And as always, I feel terribly that I wasn't able to get to everybody who called in.